This episode is brought to you by Frameline 49, the 49th San Francisco International LGBTQ+ Film Festival. The world's longest-running queer film festival is returning to theaters in San Francisco and Oakland, June 18th through the 28th. Called the most crucial event on the summer film calendar by KQED, Frameline 49 celebrates the bold visions of more than 150 queer filmmakers from 40 countries. Browse the full lineup and buy tickets at www.frameline.org. See you at the movies.
I don't know. I live in Oakland now. I've just never felt home the way that I feel home in San Francisco. Like I come back here I come to the city like several times a week, and I just it just feels more comfortable here. You know, like I feel more comfortable like talking to people on the street, knowing where I'm going, knowing how to like catch up. Like, you know, I've been in the East Bay for 4 or 5 years at this point. It's not the same.
That was Saoirse Grace, the actor who portrays Collette in the Compton's Cafeteria Riot play. I'm Jeff, and this is Storied San Francisco, a podcast about artists, activists, and small businesses that make this city so unique. This episode is part of our Pride 2025 programming. In it, we meet Saoirse and Shane Zaldivar, who stars as Rusty in the play. We'll get to know the two actors, first Saoirse and then Shane. And then they both share the story of the 1966 riot that happened in the Tenderloin 2 years before Stonewall in New York City. Please be advised that there are discussions of state violence against trans women in this episode. Here's Saoirse Grace, followed by Shane Zaldivar.
I was one of the first successful in vitro pregnancies in Massachusetts.
Okay.
Ever. Which I said to somebody on my birthday recently, and they were like, yeah, that makes sense. And I don't know what that means.
Oh, that's a loaded statement.
Right? So I was born in Boston, and I grew up a little bit there. I grew up in San Diego. I got in a little bit of trouble in San Diego and got sent to reform school in Austria, where I did high school.
Oh, wow.
It's like near my ancestral homeland, which is a state called Tyrol.
Okay.
Southern Austria and northern Italy. It sort of is
Alps.
like a, yeah.
Alpsy.
Alps, Dolomites.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And so I went there for high school, wasn't ready to come back to the States, so I went to France to do college, and I studied Spanish language literature in France.
Amazing.
Like you do.
Amazing.
And the whole time I was also a professional actor. I was doing theater. I was doing musical theater.
When did you start acting?
Oh my gosh, 7th grade.
Okay.
No, that's not true. In 3rd grade, I played Beethoven in a play about Beethoven because I could read the best.
That's amazing.
Right? But no, like I remember 7th grade, we did a play that was originally written for all female actors. And the drama teacher, who I don't remember her name, but she changed the pronouns and like the names and everything for everybody else but me. And I was like, she must have seen something in there. You know, like I was playing the woman's role as a woman and stuff.
Right.
At like 12, 13 years old.
Right.
Didn't figure it out for a while afterwards. But that was like one of the first plays that I was in.
Okay.
And, you know, it's just fun to pretend.
Yeah, I think 3rd grade is probably like you're thrown into it, but 7th grade is like, I'm going to do this. It's a little more
You're a little more
active.
like autonomous, a little bit more of like a full person.
Right.
You know?
And did you like it?
I loved it.
Okay.
I loved it. I was in a play, at least 1 or 2 plays or musical theater per year until like for the next like 10 years.
Oh, wow.
You know?
So all the way through high school.
All the way through high school, through
and
college. And then afterwards, I was part of a circus, like an aerial circus too. Yeah.
Like all over or where?
We traveled around Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was based in Austin. We traveled around.
Which
I did
circus is it?
Trapeze. It was a thing called Sky Candy.
Okay.
Which was like it was a gym that also had a troupe attached to it, and we would perform.
Amazing.
Yeah, my thing was I was like a strong man, and I was like trying to escape the audience after an embarrassment.
Okay.
You know, and so it was like a clown kind of. It was like a clown act.
Yeah. Fun. So you lived in Austin for a while, or?
Yeah, for 3 years.
Okay. Just curious when, because I lived there too.
2010 to
A
2013.
little after my time, but yeah. Okay.
I worked at Flipnotics, if you know it.
I don't know Flip.
Okay, it was like a famous
All good.
cafe.
Oh, yeah.
So then I moved to San Francisco to go to law school.
Okay, I was just about to ask what brought you here.
I wanted to be still an actor, still have an audience, but maybe trying to do something that made a little bit more money. You know?
Those are extreme. You're like,
I thought I
wanted to be a
I
doctor
nailed
or
it.
bag groceries.
I thought I hit the jackpot figuring out lawyer for like an actor, but with a nice income.
Yeah.
It didn't work out.
Okay. Did you go to Hastings or?
No, I went to USF.
Oh yeah. Oh, I live right there.
Oh, nice.
Lone Mountain. Mhm.
And that didn't work out. I did some police accountability. I did some police oversight and like anti-surveillance stuff, like Freedom of Information Act, Public Records Act stuff. And
Thank you for your work.
thank you. And then
But here we are.
And then I had some stuff fall through, and I moved to Las Vegas, where I did porn and sex work for a little bit. And then I came back to the Bay to do a PhD program because I wanted to be a professor. Because also, an audience with a bit of a better income, you know. Also didn't work out. So this is my from 2012 or 2013. This is my first foray back into actually acting in front of an audience since being a clown.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was like 12, 13 years.
And this
apart.
is your first run with the Compton play? Okay.
Yeah.
You weren't part of the original.
I was not part of the original cast.
Okay. I want to unpack a couple of things, especially where they intersect with the topic of this podcast, which is San Francisco. So you had that sort of goal or purpose of the first time of law school, but like, what did you think of this wackadoodle city that we live in?
I moved here by bicycle. I sold most of my stuff in Austin, flew to my aunt and uncle's house in Seattle, and then rode my bike down the coast with everything that I could fit on it. And I made it to San Francisco in 2013 on, during the Pride Parade.
Amazing.
And I had never seen a lift before, and I saw all of these cars with like the pink furry mustaches on the front.
They had the mustache, yeah.
And I was like, what place did I just move to? Are you kidding me? Like, this is incredible. Because I rode like into the Castro, having no idea, you know. I mean, maybe some stories. But
You had
like,
heard, but...
I had heard that San
but
Francisco
never
was a
been.
gay mecca. But like, I was in, I was in San Diego. You know, I was in Paris. Paris was like a very gay city.
Sure.
And I was like, what else could be like that? And I moved to San Francisco on the day of the Pride Parade.
You literally rode into town on a bicycle?
I rode into town on a
I just,
steel
for
bicycle.
listeners, because your story, I've never heard a story like that, and it's amazing. Just for listeners, you're not Forrest Gump. This sounds like a Forrest Gump type story. You're like, I did all these things, and then I rode into town. Amazing. Okay. And what a day to do that.
What a day to do that. So I moved here, got work as a bike mechanic. I'm a bicycle mechanic right now.
Okay.
I've sort of done that in and out through everything else. And yeah.
So that was your first day,
My
literally.
first day in San Francisco.
And then, but you mentioned that law school didn't work out. You didn't leave right away, right? You stayed for a while, or?
Yeah, I stayed in the city.
So what was it about it beyond Pride Parade Day?
So I lived in the Richmond because I went to USF. I lived in the Richmond for most of the time that I lived here, and then I moved to a weird old like converted former Pentecostal church that definitely was haunted.
Yes.
That was in like sort of on the border of Potrero and Mission.
Okay.
And I don't know. I live in Oakland now. I've just never felt home the way that I feel home in San Francisco. Like I come back here I come to the city like several times a week, and I just like it just feels more comfortable here. You know, like I feel more comfortable like talking to people on the street, knowing where I'm going, knowing how to like catch up. Like, you know, I've been in the East Bay for 4 or 5 years at this point.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the same.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Nothing against the East Bay.
No,
I love it over there.
I do love the East Bay. I live and work there, you know. And my wife is like, you know, Oakland through and through. I just like the city. You know?
And then you also said you left and went to Vegas and then came back.
Yeah, I've left and come back several times. I left to go to Vegas for a little bit and came back. I left at the beginning of the pandemic to move to Bodega Bay to work on tractors for a little while, and then came back.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, you keep coming back. I think there's something there.
I gotta listen to it. You know, I even left. I moved to Vienna for 3 months in like 2022, and came back. All roads lead to the Bay. You know.
Speaking on behalf of the city. Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy about it. I'm not upset with it.
Yeah. Okay. Shane?
Sure.
Something along the lines of what Saoirse just did.
Trying to think, kind of leading up to moving to the Bay. So I was born and raised in Florida. A lot of my life was split between there and where my family is from in Belize. My mom just had me at a young age and had a lot of shit to figure out. And so the solution at that point was just sending me over. And once she did figure things out, it made it so I had, you know, it made sense. Like, she got some time to herself, I'd be with family. And so a lot of my upbringing was split between the two.
With your mom's family in Florida?
Mom's family in Florida and Belize.
Oh, okay.
Because that's where we're all from.
Okay.
She moved out here, and she was in the military and had a baby really young. Didn't know she was going to have one, but, you know, here I am. And yeah, life in Florida, really rough. Just kind of that kid that was like bullied all the time, like easy target, open my mouth and I was like feminine, like, you know.
What part of Florida, can I ask?
I was in Broward County for a good chunk of it.
I've heard of that, but that's like the 2000 election. That's my reference.
I mean,
North of Miami?
I can't even give that much more reference. It's like,
Right.
it's north of Miami.
North of Miami, yeah.
But like ours.
Right.
But we moved to different parts too. We lived in like other little neighborhoods like Hialeah. They're in West Palm Beach now. I was there for some time. So
That's infamous for a different reason.
Oh my God, no, they're like literally what, a 15-minute drive from Mar-a-Lago.
Oh,
So
okay,
like,
let's scratch that from the podcast.
yeah, like it's awful. I really just, I have no joy when I go there, unfortunately, except to see them.
Yeah.
But the better times I've had growing up were definitely in Belize. At some point I went to school out there for like middle school and high school. And yeah, I don't know, very much in touch with the culture there as much as I could be. Like kind of Caribbean culture, lots of cousins and people I got to grow and get to know.
Big ass family.
Big ass family.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's a tiny country, so like you just start to learn that everybody's your cousin.
Oh shit.
Like, oh. But so it goes. They're all there. They're doing it. They're doing their thing. And then, yeah, I went to college in Florida because there was a scholarship program, and I went to Florida International University. Good school, diverse, and like had the programs. My big awakening at school was many things, like sexuality, drag. These are the places I first did those things.
Where is that school?
It's close to Miami. That's a 20-minute drive from Miami, so we were going there all the time.
Yeah.
The big awakening there, though, that led me to the Bay Area in particular was cannabis.
Okay.
So I went into school like total demonizer. You could not be my friend and like touch weed or drugs. Like,
oh, wow.
Like if I smelled weed on you, I'd be like, I don't want to hang out.
Oh, wow.
It was bad.
Yeah.
Until one fateful day, I had a colleague and coworker who was like, I mean, if you ever want to try it, you can. I'm like, and so I tried it, and it was right then and there. I was like, everything they've told me about this is a lie. I was
Right.
like, I lost all of the anxiety that I hold all the time. I was just laughing, having a lot of joy, not having the side effects of like kind of what they do with all the reefer madness type scaring.
Sure.
And so with that, I became very passionate about learning about cannabis. I was just so fascinated.
How old were you that first time?
I was like, I want to say I was already 21.
Okay.
I think I was already 21 by the time I tried it. And just complete fascination, learning how cannabis could be used as a textile, that people were using it who have cancer as one of the best forms of treatment for them. I took a class at my university called Hallucinogens in Society, where I learned just all about different substances and how they use them culturally, also and how they're being used today. In that particular class, I learned about a college or university that exists only in Oakland.
Okay.
And this is called Oaksterdam University.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So in my moment of being impassioned about like learning about something that I was wrong about, seeing how much good it could do for the world, and not really having much of a plan. I was liberal arts after changing my major like 30 times.
Yep. That is the definition of not having a plan, liberal arts.
It was that, and I loved it. Oh my God, I wouldn't
Yeah.
change it for anything. I got
Totally.
to learn about all the different like niche classes I wanted to take. So I did like things on like anthropology, hospitality, theater. I was like, we're gonna mash these up and call it a degree.
Yeah.
Because I don't have money to pay for more.
Yeah. Mine was botany. I did a botany class in Texas. Like, it was amazing. Field trips
Are
were
you
a
still
whole
utilizing
fucking
any botany?
thing. I mean,
I don't know.
that's another podcast.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm hardly using any of my architecture skills. So
Yeah.
You know.
Well, yeah, but we are well-rounded
We're
individuals
well-rounded,
for
exactly.
having gone through liberal arts programs.
Indeed. But that's what led me to the Bay.
That was the first visit. Was Oaksterdam?
So, funny enough, I had never been here before.
Yeah.
I graduated and kind of just made a plan that no matter what, I'm going to this school.
Okay.
And so I raised the money to get the ticket, a one-way ticket. I paid for my registration, and it was after I booked the flight, I was looking and I was doing some research, and I go, oh, San Francisco is a bridge away
It's right
from
past there.
Oakland.
Yeah.
I had no idea. The
Yep.
only concept of San Francisco I ever had was like the Harvey Milk movie, which I
Right.
had seen.
Right.
But yeah, no, I just kind of placed all my bets on that and was like, if it doesn't work out, I'll just go back to Florida, but let's give this a solid try.
Okay.
And so I moved to Oakland at the beginning of 2014.
Okay.
Started school and just went through a lot of the like, what's the word called? Just the experience of like having to navigate in a new place, especially in the Bay Area. So like my first place that I stayed, I think it was called the Imperial Suites of Oakland.
Okay.
It was one of those like paper thin wall places. They give you one ticket to like ride the elevator one time. You can either go up or you can go down. And when you go on it, there's just bags of chips everywhere. It was like a hard week to just start.
Yeah.
But then moved to different like hostels and eventually found a place in San Francisco that was cheap.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I did my program, and in the program, I was just falling in love with the Bay Area. Like, my life in Florida was plazas, the mall, the movies, a theme park here and there. Here, I was getting exposed to Folsom Street Fair. I was getting exposed to people hanging out in the park. We didn't really do that. Like, we might have done more things like that in Belize, like if we're hanging on an island and it's the vibe there, but nothing quite like community, people moving and bustling on public transit, running into people I would meet. Like, that was wild to me. I will always remember the first time I was like, why am I running into you? Hi, oh my goodness. Like, what a experience in like what's supposed to be a big city.
It's actually like tiny, and there's like 17 of us maybe.
And
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved
yeah,
it.
it's cool. I think it speaks to what Saoirse was talking about of like, it just is home. It feels like home.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
no. That first year was definitely rough, and there was no part of me that thought I was going to go back to Florida.
Right.
Like, I was like pretty much on the verge of homeless. Like, I got evicted, had to like couch surf. My stuff was in one place, and like I had to go shower in another.
Yeah.
Like, it was a bit complicated. And like, I remember at some point, like, one of the moments that I remember, I was at Molly Stone's in the Castro, and there was buy one, get one free eggs. And I would wait in the store to see for people who weren't taking their free eggs. And I'd be like,
Amazing.
Excuse me, like, I just noticed you're not taking your second eggs. Like, would you be okay if you grab it and I could get that from you just as a way to feed myself? Like, I was taking bread off of trash cans. Like,
Yeah.
I had to survive. Because it was that, or my family was like, we'll pay for the ticket, we'll go back to Florida. And I was like, nope,
Yeah.
I got this. I'll figure it out. No
Yeah.
worries. And at that point, I was being exposed to the Stud, like going for their Tuesday night cabaret meow mix.
The Harrison Street.
The old
Stud.
location,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes. And that too, just like blowing me away, like never being exposed to art in that such close proximity to it.
Community
Too.
as fuck, as the kids say. Yeah, yeah.
Just being able to see the same people who wanted to get to know me were kind. And yeah, I was just falling in love with San Francisco. And so I got my first job finally at the Ferry Building at like one of the little retail shops. So thankful for it. It held me down. It paid the bills.
And you said you found a place in the city to live?
At the point, eventually. So then once I kind of landed that job and got through my first eviction, my only one, at the place where I'm at now, I've been for 10 years.
Congrats.
So I got really
That's
lucky.
no small feat.
It's really lucky.
Amazing.
I held that down.
What part of the city can I ask?
Bernal
Oh, yeah.
Heights.
Up on the hill? Oh, I'm jealous.
It's really beautiful up there.
Yeah, and warm.
Yeah. No, thank God.
Always.
But yeah, in the time that I've been here, it's just been such a playful environment for me to explore myself as a drag artist, to explore myself with different friends who are other types of activists or artists. I'm in a band that I've been in for 7 years now. I do a project called the Pop-Up Drag Queen, where I do drag at the Ferry Building for the past 10 years.
That's you. Yeah,
Oh, yes.
I know about you. Yeah, okay,
yeah.
cool. Speaking of the small town, it's like, yeah, of course I know.
I'm
yeah,
the crazy sparkly lady by the Ferry Building on
Fun, I
Saturdays.
thought you looked familiar.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
One thing, I mean, I don't know if you're finished.
tell me.
One
No.
thing missing so far from your story is acting.
Funny enough, I didn't really do a lot of it. I was like boy number 3 in the Willy Wonka production of my second grade class.
Yes.
I was like, candy. Stupid. I like losing my breath over it.
But also drag is performative.
Drag is
so-
kind of where I got a lot of that like performer stage thing. And the first time I did it in Florida, I like practically fell to my knees with joy.
Yeah.
It was just like so overwhelming because it was my first time playing with gender, now identifying as a trans woman, and I got to do that. And like I just remember falling into my friend's arms and just like saying repeatedly, like, that felt so good, that felt so good. So then finally being able to do it here in San Francisco and seeing that I like could perform. That performance was not just like Beyonce and Gaga. Like you could like vomit blood and then eat a cake and do the splits, and that's like blow your mind art. Like I lived for that. And so it was only when the first run of Comptons came about that I ever did my like more serious like first acting gig.
Okay. Can we put a pin in that, as they
Yes.
say? I think now would be a good good time, at least for my brain, for both of you or one of you to tell the story of the riot.
So it was hot. It was August, and it was 1966. That's like a line from the opening. But yeah, it was an August day in 1966. Nobody's quite sure which weekend in August. Susan Stryker has done a lot of work to try to like find like an archival record of the event itself. But yeah, as best we know, it was late August.
Okay.
And the TL at the time was like the Vegas of San Francisco. It was the place of vice. It was the place of like fun. It was the place of like gambling and hookers and like having a blast, you know? Jazz,
yeah.
For sure, yeah. Which was also sort of seen not as like a legit, quote unquote, you know, like it was a racialized music, and so it wasn't seen as equivalent to like other types of music by people outside of the Tenderloin. Obviously, like among people that listen to jazz, like, yeah, it's incredible. But and the TL was the only place that trans women and drag queens were allowed to exist. You know, I say trans women and drag queens. I think there's more of a distinction today between those two than there was. It was more of a fluid border, if not extremely similar in 1966. You know, so in the play, and then also as we talk about it, I think using those terms kind of interchangeably is appropriate for the time period,
right?
Even though we see them as distinct now,
right?
Yeah. So it was. I mean, we know the story of Stonewall, right? It was like police were not letting us exist, you know, in bureaucratic ways, in ways that they enacted literal and kinetic violence, and also bureaucratic violence, you know, like getting people on like nitpicky, like impersonating a female, for example. You know, like we're not impersonating anybody,
right?
But like the ways that the cops would find institutional and interpersonal ways to do just profound amounts of violence to the trans women whom they also saw as synonymous with sex workers, as synonymous with addicts, which, you know, like sound familiar?
Not that it's right.
Not that it's right.
Against those people, but
also not that it's wrong. You know, like a trans woman who's on a bunch of drugs and who's a sex worker is exactly as deserving of respect as a trans woman who's not. You know, like there's no moral character to like how we make it through the day.
It was like intense othering. Which is just groundwork for violence.
Right. And like groundwork for like justified violence, like ontologically justified violence.
Right.
Violence is always already an appropriate response to a trans woman existing when you have that kind of depersonalization and dehumanization. And, you know, there's this writer whom I love named Sarah Ahmed, who wrote an article called An Affinity of Hammers, which is great. Everybody should go read it. It's not, I think it's like 6 or 10 pages long. But one of the things that she talks about in that is when you step on a twig and you hear it snap, that snap is not the beginning of the pressure on that twig. That snap is the result of increased invisible pressure on that stick. And so the snap of that twig was the riot. You know, the snap was somebody saying, fuck you. No, you know.
Enough.
More than enough. And, you know, I hesitate to try to characterize exactly what it is, because saying the temptation is to say, oh, that was enough, sort of forgives all the violence that led up to that, you know, like that wasn't quite enough.
Right.
And of course, like it also was, you know, this just happened to be the time, you know, this was like the Russian roulette that the cops were playing with our lives. And this was the time that there was a bullet in the chamber. You know, I know that's a violent metaphor, but I don't think it's an inappropriate one.
No,
you know?
No, it's apt. Yeah.
And there was a riot, and there was a really solid sort of built and natural affinity among the hookers, among the trans women, among the queer community of the Tenderloin.
Like we're in it together.
Large, that we're in it together, just sort of like understood through this like response to violence, you know?
Right.
Like when you have a group of trans women walking down the street and somebody calls one of us a faggot, you don't really have to say anything to one another because we already just know. It was that type of solidarity is how I have understood the igniting of that riot, you know, is that we all already knew why it was happening. We all already knew what it was in response to. Nobody had to like be informed who was there, who was living it, because we were informed every day.
Right. Lived experience.
Yeah. You know? And it's not to say that wasn't without the help of like the Vanguard, for example, who was like a group of organizers who, you know, helped to characterize these individual acts of state violence into something more of like a meta-narrative, more of a like, this is happening because we are trans. This is happening because we are trans. This is happening because we're queer. But it was not the acts of the organizers who were helping to sort of build a coherent narrative of ourselves that did this. You know, they supported it, and there was like a sort of a backdrop for it. But the act itself, the action of like violence toward the state, what lies solely in the hands of the trans women who are living it. You know.
Right. So that day, whatever day it was in August. So what happened?
Do you want to?
I'll try my best. Yeah, I think, you know, so Compton's was unique in that it was in the middle of the Tenderloin. It was a 24-hour diner. So, and specifically the one in the Tenderloin would allow the business of people who were these trans like sex workers or drag performers. There was business that was allowed to be had here. And because that was the case, and these folks were, you know, doing this like survival work, this was a hub for them to check in on one another, to be like, hey, did you see if that girl came back from her John? All right, cool. Like, or a place to shoot the shit after a really rough night, you know? And because of that, that became a regular scene for Comptons leading up to the night. Mind you, that didn't mean it was free of police coming in to raid the place.
Sure.
So the police would come in and still get people to be like, get in the paddy wagon. And it could be for the offense of that your buttons are on the wrong side. Like, that's a blouse. And because that's a blouse and you're a man, you're getting arrested. And they'd send these people to the Queen's Tank, which was a place that they'd put like queer people, trans women, drag queens, and just be extremely horrendous to them.
So the discrimination and the whatever bigotry and all that stuff, it was thorough. Like, it's not only when they round folks up, it's like,
yeah, they would
the incarceration was
it was known
everything.
It was known that they would shave their hair off. So like some of these girls who like they relied on their looks at times to do their job or whatever, or just the self-expression of being themselves. They would make a point to invade them even in those ways. That, you know, it's not about just like handcuffs and be behind the bars. Like they would take it to other levels, of course, and so. People who came here knew that they ran the risk of that, and they still wanted to be in community. They still wanted a cup of coffee, you know, and a place to feel a break from the world out there. And
do either of you know, like, how unique was Compton's in that? Like, where the TL, I've seen those like maps, and I moved here 25 years ago, and I'm like, I remember even then there were like 5 or 6. Like run the gamut, queer, LGBTQ, like all the way bars that aren't here anymore. I've seen the maps from back in the day. Were there other, maybe not bars, but like spots like Compton's that were known hubs?
The one place that comes to mind was the, I think it's called the El Rosa Hotel, which
Okay.
is down the street from where Compton's was. And it was just like a space that a lot of trans women rented out. Like, so that was like a very community style home where like there might be like 2 or 3 trans women in one bedroom. And
Right.
it had like a house mother, and the mother would allow for them to bring Johns. And then when the house mother went to bed and put like her best person in charge, that person would break the rules and you could bring 3 Johns, you know? So like there were things that were allowing for trans people to have certain spaces. They think there are certain bars that had existed that, you know, trans women would take up more space. But Compton's was uniquely a place that they could have sustenance. You know,
Right.
they could have food, they could have coffee, they could have, you know, and I think that's where Compton's is uniquely placed as a location institution. And then that night, you know, it was one of those normal nights, I guess, where it, you know, the cops could have come in at any time. The girls were doing what they were going to do. There is suspicion, as far as I hear, that there was like a very intentional and planned raid that was going to happen that night. Like they had already, like it's kind of even in our play a bit where it's like the cop goes, and if I hear about any shit coming back, I'm going to come back and heads are going to roll.
Right.
Kind of stating that like something is.
They knew they were going to come back.
I think the history is that was potentially the case, that they had kind of already planned that they were going to come in and do like a real big operation on Compton's. And when that happened, it took one person to just be like, you know, fuck this. Like at that point you feel like you have nothing left to lose,
right?
You know, and so they threw the coffee in the cop's face.
It was hot coffee.
It was a hot cup
Yeah.
of coffee.
Yep,
It was
yep.
a hot cup of
Yep.
coffee, and like it took one person, and yeah, they had enough, and it's like, who knows if that person just had like a reaction that was so visceral. I don't think they planned to throw a coffee, right? It could be that they were just being physically harassed by an officer, and kind of first thing they thought to do was like grab the first thing in front of it to react. So I don't think there was any kind of plan for a riot to happen, but once that got going, it started breaking windows with sugar shakers. It poured into the streets, and similar to what Saoirse's saying is that, like, people outside could hear, like, hey, something's going on over on the corner where Compton's is. And as community was seeing what was happening, I think they just got in it. They didn't need to be explained. They saw what it was and was like, it's happening. We need to fucking fight now. And the riot lasted a day.
Wow.
A whole day. So seeing the change from dark to light with this fight still going on, I can't even imagine. They burned a cop car.
Right.
They burned a cop car. And the thing is, what's crazy is that it was such a big event that San Francisco did not want to be embarrassed by it. And so there's no news articles. There's nothing official from the newspapers citing that this riot took place. It was only among community members to be like, that fucking night, and kind of seeing how the cops did back down after that. It was an embarrassment for them. So they took the opportunity after to then kind of be more advocates for their own rights. But that night itself, I mean, it was no kind of, outside of what would normally happen on a night at Compton's, I think it was just one person who really was just, like I said, just had enough.
That was actors Shane Zaldivar and Saoirse Grace. Check back this Thursday for a bonus episode with Frameline Film Festival Executive Director Allegra Madsen. And catch part 2 with Shane and Saoirse next Tuesday, wherever you get podcasts. Music for Storied San Francisco was produced, performed, and curated by Otis McDonald. Our contributing producer is Aaron Lim of Bitch Talk Podcast. And the show is produced and hosted by me, Jeff Hunt. Now in our 7th season, we have more than 250 episodes available on our website, storiedsf.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If possible, please rate and review the show. I want to know what you think. Follow us on Instagram and Threads at storiedsf, and reach us there or email us at storiedsf@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Be extra careful crossing the street, and keep being wacky, creative, and kind out there. See you next time on Storied San Francisco. We acknowledge and respect the first humans of the unceded land we call San Francisco, the Ramaytush Ohlone. We condemn the genocide of these and other tribes across the Western Hemisphere. We honor their legacy and history, and we support rematriation and sovereignty efforts.
This podcast is a proud member of the BFF.FM podcast network. Learn more at podcasts.bff.fm.
BFF.FM, best frequencies forever.